In this video, I'm going to go over how I model and block out a scene in Maya and then bring it into Unreal to check out our lighting and composition. So let's get right into it. So one of the first things that we need to see is if we're going to work in centimeters or meters. Since I want to work in meters just to keep measurements in check with Unreal. And then we're gonna add a character just for reference and scale, and fix our grid. It's very important to work in the grid, so having the correct measurements and spaces, it's gonna help us greatly. Right now, I'm just gonna go over the settings. So I usually do maybe 32. And then for lines every meter, that's like a quarter meter per square. And it's also good to change the colors of our grid lines, just so we know. Perfect. Let's check. Let's bring a cube. Let's make sure it's 1 meter, and it's perfect. We're gonna be going over the grid so many times, so let's keep it handy. You can also make a script. I made a script where I can just change the values of my grid. And next thing, we need the camera. At this point, just the camera, we're just gonna use it as just to help us figure the composition just a little bit. I'm not too worried about compositing in Maya because I want to do everything in Unreal, but it's important. Next thing, we're going to look for in our settings, there's the environment tab. We're gonna add an image inside of the camera. We're gonna bring our sketch. Okay, now we have our sketch, and I'm gonna go look through it, and you're gonna notice that our sketch stays put, but we can move the camera around, which it's okay. What I'm trying to do is match my perspective, or the perspective of the camera, to the one of the sketch. And to start with, I'm going to create a 4 meter by 4 meter cube. And this is just going to help us figure out how high our walls are going to be. I think 4 meters is pretty tall. Obviously, you can make the walls any size you want, but I prefer 4 meters. And then, as you can see, if we toggle on and off, so we don't see that sketch everywhere. So I select the sketch. Then I go and just view it in that particular camera that I want. So I think we're gonna use this cube just to help us with perspective. Like I said, it's not gonna be perfect. And I'm deciding how big is this. So I think it's like a 3-story building. The first one is the base, and the second one is the first floor, and third floor. Again, this setup takes quite a little bit to figure out, especially from the perspective. It's good to reference how high these things are if you just multiply a bunch of times the character. Then again, we're just gonna play with the perspective and see that more or less it's what I want or what it looks in my sketch. I think I'm going to freeze the camera yet. No, maybe I'll just keep playing with the camera and see if I'm happy. So let's bring a character just closer to the camera just to get a sense of how long this is. And right away, we're starting to see a little bit of perspective playing, which is great. See how far we are from that house. I think I'm good with this. Let's lock. So right now I can't even move it anymore because it's locked, which is good. We don't want to make the mistake. So at this point, I'm trying to build the house in a modular way, and that's why you see all these blocks. In a production environment, you're usually giving these measurements. The designer comes and wants the house or the space some measurement that they want, just so the character can walk around. But since this is my sketch or my project, I have the liberty to make it however I want. So doing it this way, at least it's easier because I can make just trim sheets or use any tileable that I want. And usually tileables are square, so this works out perfectly. So I'm trying to keep things symmetrical, like 4 meters on one side, 4 meters on the other. And we're going to do some housekeeping here and start renaming our layers. So I think I'm gonna start building this house and adding more shapes, break that silhouette so it's not blocky, of course. And I need my reference for that. I mean, I could have the reference outside, but somehow I feel like you need it inside. And I align things more or less just to help me figure out how high is this compared to my sketch. Okay. So I resize it just to know that I have some of the dimensions close to. All right. Let's hide that for now. And I want to change that shape as if it had a window in the front. So at this point, I know that what I want is the basic measurements. That's why it's so rough looking. I'm not trying to go and build right away and make everything on the grid. I just want to see if these modules work before I commit to building something more complex. And again, it's just all about being able to replicate these modules. And I can't stress enough how important modularity in games is, as you can't really make everything unique in a game. Otherwise, you will have millions of textures, millions of materials, millions of pieces. So reusing these assets, it's important to keep the frame rate in check. As you can see, I'm using the grid for everything. I try to play with the measurements a little bit, but everything is always in the grid. If it's 1 meter, a quarter of a meter, of half. All right, so I think for now, the general shape is done. And let's start making some of the other actors in our scene, which are the infamous drippies or geysers. And I just want to get the general shape of my terraces, and also more or less how big they're going to be. And I try not to create many sizes. If I make a couple or three sizes, that's perfect, because every one of those sizes is going to be a different asset. So if you make one, make sure you tile it everywhere, repeat it everywhere. And if you make it bigger, you're going to be using that same measurement everywhere. So I think I'm going to have a medium, a very large, and small one. And I constantly go and check on my camera just for placement. And now I'm going to start making the wheel. Again, everything on the grid. And if I move things, I move them usually in the grid, but there are certain items that really don't need to be in the grid, like those trippies. Now I'm going to create a large 100 by 100 sections plane to make a fake ground. And this is going to tie all of the pieces together, just like in my reference. Next thing, I'm going to make another one, and that is going to be my geyser. And I really don't care about the proper geometry or anything like that. This is just experimentation, getting some of the sizes of these pieces that I'm going to make. It's all about getting the rough size, the position, and just working the composition at this point, moving things around, see if it works, see if it roughly matches the composition, that it matches the reference that I have. All right, so next thing on the line is going to be one of those terraces that are kind of in the ground. They hold the water, and they are more organic in the shape. But I still try things to be at a size that I can just texture easily using one or two materials. So yeah, I'm also thinking about texturing at the same time. How big is going to be my texture when I make this piece? How many materials is it going to use? These are important questions or things that you have to consider when making very large things. Because if it's very large, you might have to break it into separate pieces. And inside of a level, you always have to be aware of how many textures, how many materials you're going to use. So the more you plan, the less issues you're going to have with performance. Let's replicate the same piece over and over for now. And I'm trying to frame it in a way that it's going towards the camera to help with that perspective. Right, well, let's look at through our camera. And I'm going to add these little dudes just for reference and scale. And move it around. I know that that's going to be a deck, and I know that's going to be a window right there. So the deck might be a problem there. So I think we are pretty much ready to test this. Let's just do some housekeeping and start and put things in folders. And next thing we're going to test this in Unreal. Okay. So in Unreal, I brought all of the pieces separately because I want to be able to move them around, just play with the composition. And as you can see, I can actually jump on top of things because I added a collision. So collision, block all, and use complex as simple And that's gonna make basically your mesh is gonna become a collision. As you can see, there's two collisions, the simple, which is a big block that I won't be able to get in. But if I fix it as complex, then I can actually jump and walk around. And finally, a screenshot. Let's screenshot this. It has progress. One thing that I wanted to go over is exporting into Unreal. So let's make a test with 1 meter by 1 meter cube. And when we import that cube, has to match the measurements of our scene in Maya. All right, so let's look at the options. Everything looks correct. Combine meshes. Sometimes we want to combine, sometimes we don't. And we don't need to create UVs. Create collision we need. And all of the things is every mesh needs a different setting. Uniform 1, convert to scene, check. Sometimes we want or not material and import. Let's bring in and test. It looks right. It looks like 1 meter cube. And play. There you go. So we really don't need to change our measurements from Maya to centimeters. We can work in meters as easy as just changing our import settings. And that's it. Next thing, we're gonna make this block out and make a much better block out.